I love printing. I love printing. I love it. I love printing. Hey everybody, I want to welcome you back to another session of Printer to Printer with me, Warren Werbitt, also known as the Print Whisperer. Today we are joined by one of my favorite people in our industry. It's not going to be a printer to printer talk today. Today it's just going to be a printer to the best guy around. And we have Daniel Dejan. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation.
I purposely try to find the most colorful shirt in my closet that had color.
Handsome. Very handsome. Très beau.
You know,
Yep.
One friend once asked me if I took all my other shirts and had them sewn together to make one shirt, but Polo did this on their own.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, so it's cool. So basically, I was talking with Danielle the other day, and he had posted something on colors and the importance of color and thinking about it for your branding. And of course, all of his posts, I have to write something on it because they're always pretty cool. And called him up to have a conversation on it. And then it just came to me, and I said, "Hey, Danielle, you want to join me on a printer to printer interview?"
Absolutely. With pleasure. Yes. Are you kidding? Put me in, coach.
You're in. So I'm just going to go off for a minute.
Sure.
But I met Danielle long time ago.
Oh, Canada.
Way back when. He even speaks a little French. But when I first met him, and he was with Sappy, by the way, to me, you are Mr. Sappy.
Well, thank you.
If it wasn't for you, Sappy wouldn't be what Sappy is today in the world of graphic arts.
Thank you.
Just saying. But when we met, I had just done this crazy video. Some of you may have seen it. Some of you may have not. And Danielle,
how could you not have seen it? It was singularly one of the most important videos that made, in my opinion, sincerely, one of the most powerful and honest statements at a time when it was most needed.
I'm sitting here smiling. I could almost cry because thank you for that comment. And I still love that video. It's like timeless.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the old Heidelberg windmill. It's never going to go away.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And then and he called me up and was talking about the video and what he just said, thought it was great and all. And then we had actually connected, got together. And at about the same time, I had just bought that brand new KBA 142
Yum.
6-color UV beautiful press that did
that
everything.
Yummy press. Oh
my God! You can go on YouTube and their pizzazz and still see the installation if you want. But when I got that press, we got into the UV, and then we met. We were talking. You were doing this. First of all, the Sappy sample books are the essence of print and what it's supposed to be and look like.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
And I'm going to shout out to. I think a lot of them were done by Jeff Hernandez at Classic Color.
Yeah. Indeed.
And if you're listening, Jeff, I know you will. Yeah. Wicked job. Yeah. But tell me.
I was going to say, and if I may, I mean, I think of myself as the anchor man for Sappy, which is to say, I'm the face, and I deliver the message, in a way that is palatable, to a larger audience. But, Patty Grow, shout out to Patty, who is the director of marketing communications, who managed and fought tooth and nail for budget. Kit Heinrichs, who is my design daddy, getting to work with my mentor, working with guys like Jeff Hernandez. But it's set a tone and a mood. So what's next?
All I can think about is Sappy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like waiting for the next number to come with that catalog or the brochure or
the standards. Well, not only the standards, because we also, in between, the idea was always to have a standard per year, and then have a secondary publication towards the end that was graphic arts oriented, technique always. Although sometimes the technique was very subtle. We had a message to deliver, but we delivered it in the most beautiful way that we possibly could.
The thermocratic ink in, I don't know, number 5 or 6, right? Like that thing would sit open on my desk and I would just sit there, keep putting my hand on it.
Yes.
Right. So let me ask you though,
no.
where and there's a lot of other good paper companies out there. I don't want to take anything away from
Superb,
anybody.
absolutely.
But where did all that come from with the design and that creativity? And I mean, Sappi spends big money,
yes,
producing sample books. And I think, by the way, I'll also single-handedly call them out, because I think they just do a spectacular job using all the finishings that are available. Well, not everyone does that.
Understood. I mean, if this goes back to the SD Warren days, because
I
SD
like that
Warren,
name, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you would. But SD Warren, and that's the company that I wanted to work for. I grew up with them. You know, they were the original, Lustro, at a time when, you had other papers as a competitor. But the core and the mission for Sappi was to educate and inspire. So the first thing was educate, and it was talk about techniques. What does it do? How does it work? How do you design for it? How do you ask your printer? What does your printer do, etc.? Cool. But then in terms of inspiration, if you don't show people how it's done, and not just done, but done extraordinarily well. So the biggest thing, let me give you a comment that I always had to make, because you've heard me say this before. I've had the privilege of pissing off more printers throughout North America, because we would put out a standard and they would come back to me and say, I can't show this to my client. I can't do this. I don't have the equipment. And my response was, you may not be able to now, but the market demand will put you in a position where you need to. And then on the backside, I was talking to all the press manufacturers and the ink manufacturers, saying to them, I've got to go out there and I have got to be able to talk to the printer side about this piece. So many times I would say to them, yeah, this technique, by the way, now Heidelberg can retrofit this to your press. Or now there's a way of doing this offline so that you can. And it was that kind of marriage, that kind of co-op that was going on between the paper mill and the print community that made it work in my mind.
Yeah, no, first of all, I'm going to take a shot at printers right now, and I'm a printer. And if you're listening,
and a great one, yeah.
Thank you. But if you're a printer and you're listening, and you should hear this, start marketing. First of all, kudos to the printers that market and do it right and do it well, and you know who you are. But to the majority of the others, you're not going to improve your business. You're not going to increase your profits if you don't market yourself and show your customers what it is that you can do for you before you offer to do it for them.
Absolutely. And I would share.
It makes me crazy.
I grew up, my dad owned an ad agency, and he was grooming me. So on the days when he had a paper merchant come in to the agency or a printer come in, he would have me come in. I'm 13 years old, I'm 12, whatever. And they would bring out the most breathtaking samples. And I would say, that was part of my education. And it was then at that point that I realized, this is what I want to do for a living. I want to be able to show and tell, to the graphic arts community, hey, have you seen this? Have you checked this out? And I agree with you. I mean, there is no honor in being timid.
When you talked about the books coming out and the standard printers calling you and saying, I can't print this. Well, printers are a bunch of big whiners to begin with, right? Instead of looking forward about what's coming, they're looking about what is and what was. There's no more was. It's only what is.
Yeah.
And we all know and we all watch. And two things. And I remember when I got and I showed this before, and I'll just keep showing it because it's really one of the louder moments. But when we got our IGN,
oh God, I love this.
We went out and just to every page is a different paper.
Yes.
Every page is using every color we could, every finish.
Wow.
And even at the time, Xerox didn't even know what to do with the iGen 5. They bought those for me. And then I
Right.
just said a few years ago, Bennett Graphics in
Atlanta.
David, like I kept
Oh,
their, like
a dear
I
friend.
still keep stuff, but his book too, I think he copied my idea. He went out and every page is a different paper and a different foil
Yep.
and a this and
Yep.
a that and a varnish and a big
Yep.
boss and a
Yep.
what. But you know what? He spent, I'll say he spent 50 grand, if not more.
Yeah.
But I will promise you that with his well-trained reps,
Yes.
he got a big return.
Yeah. And the interesting thing to your point is a sample like that, every paper company wants to be a part of that and will co-op, every ink company. And it's funny because, and we can talk about this from a print perspective, you say ink company and most people not in the business would be like, well, ink's ink, you buy the ink. It's like, I was one of the first designers to bring Toyo inks to the market.
Cool. I like Toyo.
And I still have press sheets.
David?
Pardon?
Toyo was David.
Yes.
Okay.
And I still have press sheets from that press run.
Right.
And the cool part of it was it was actually a photographer who got me involved because he didn't know what was going on. He said, I've been asked to do some shots, and this new ink company, Toyo, is trying to distribute, and they need a designer and a production.
By the way, they have great UV inks. Just once we're talking about greatness.
Well, the other part of it is that I did some of the early work on 5-color and 6-color presses. It was the design industry that pushed printers into that. So the fact of it is, again, that cooperation between industries, that partnering, is what becomes so important. But the fact of it is that you don't build your business by being timid. You should know that, And if you're not going to do self-promotion, and this sort of is exactly in context of what we're talking about. In order to sell paper, you have to sell print. In order to sell print, you've got to glorify print. And you've got to be prepared to do what you need to be able to bring it out. If you're not wowing the crap out of them,
you're just like everybody else.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You're just like everybody else. I was just dealing with a packaging guy the other day because I do a couple print projects for people, and I went out to get a price, and the guy, he calls back, and I said, "You're way out." And he goes, "Well, what best price do you have? Because I'll see what I could do." No. I said, buddy. No. I said, if you're going to come anywhere near what I'm telling you, you're a crook.
Right.
I said, you're better off to say to me, let me check it. Maybe I made a mistake or something, but don't fight for the job.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, we got to do a whole education of printers.
We have to assume that your price is your best price.
Every time. And I like to assume, and I know printers, right? So I know who I'm going to.
True.
I can match the quality, the equipment, all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, printers have to know how to better sell. But it's funny that you just said about the samples and printing and promoting, because right now, and my partner Kevin Abergel, we have.
Oh yes, quite well. Tactiful. He does such a great job. He does.
And I'll tell you what excites me about Tactiful is Tactiful's new, but what we're doing is new. We're catering to the OEMs and the printers who are doing digital embellishments, and that don't know how to do it. Don't know how to sell it. There's a few that know it well. How it kind of came about is the printers are buying these machines from the OEMs. The OEMs are selling it graciously.
Yeah.
And then the printers aren't sure what to do with it. They go to the OEMs and they say, well, what are we supposed to do? Could you teach us how to sell and all of this? Yeah. Right. And I laugh. I mean, we came from this because the OEMs can't teach their customers what to do with it. It's like going to buy a car, buying the car, and asking the salesman after to teach you how to drive.
Right.
Right.
Well, to your point, the OEMs are not selling creativity.
They're selling boxes.
Exactly. And I'll share with you the best compliment that we would get at Sappy is when a designer or a print production manager would take one of our pieces to their printer and say, I want to do this technique, which, in fact, if you look at every one of the books that we did, all the production notes we were completely transparent.
I always went to the back first. I wanted to know what kind of press it was. I wanted to know the color. Yeah. I wanted to know the ink sequence.
Exactly. And those are exactly the kinds of things we studied, and we worked with our printers, and our printers would come back and say, I got to add a day. Well, why? Well, because in fact, to do it the way that it's the correct way of doing it, I'm going to have to do a complete wash up. I have to change the sequence. It would be like, cool, do it. I mean,
so it's so funny that you say that, because you know all of that, and that's the right thing to do. And I remember working on projects with designers agencies where they'd spend, I'll make up some numbers, but they'll spend $100,000 on the creative and the work. They'll spend $50,000 on photography and retouching. Mm-hmm. Quoted on a number one white paper, and then all of a sudden the job finally comes to fruition, and they're giving the files and they're saying, "Is there any way we could save money?" And I'm like, "Hang on, you spent all that money up front.
Wrong place.
Now you're asking me to change the paper to a yellow paper because it's cheaper?" I said, "You're going to lose everything you did."
Absolutely.
And so I say to printers, when the customers call you and you're at the end and they've done all that, stand firm.
Absolutely.
Do what you know is right to give them the best quality.
Yep. Now here's the interesting thing: the relationship that I've had with every printer that I've ever worked with, because it's totally collaborative. Okay. I mean, and they know it. That's my attitude. So we show them, early on the sort of rough and comps and everything else. And then as we start getting into files and they come back and say, I have a way of enhancing this. I have a way. It came to me in the night, I was thinking about this spread and I thought, you know what?
Upsell.
It's not, but here's the
No, I'm saying upsell. Sorry to cut you off. I'm saying upsell so that the printer is listening.
Yeah.
It's the upsell in the sense of giving you the quality and giving you the idea and keeping you active.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, when you're upselling anybody anywhere, it's more money in your pockets.
With the core understanding, I am trying to make your product better. I am trying. It's not that I want to sell you a foil stamp or a special coating. Rather, this is going to really make this piece memorable, and it's going to knock the socks off of the people who receive it.
And then everything else leads to more profit, because that's why we're here.
Absolutely.
Everybody along the way, the paper companies more profit, the end users more profit.
And just an observation, because we've been doing this a long time. And I would share with you, and you would remember, when it was strictly offset, it was really expensive. Or like when it was
before CTP, when plates were $50, $80, $100 a plate.
Exactly.
Chromolins.
Absolutely.
They were going back to.
No, but the other part of it was, as a designer, I knew what could be done on a press and what stuff had to be shipped to a job house that specialized in thermography, foil stamping, whatever, and then shipped back. So there were shipping costs and delays and everything else. But my job at that point was then to be able to go back to my client and say, but I got to tell you, this is so worth it. It's going to knock your customers out. And, my job is to enhance my customers' stance in their market.
Our job is to make sure that we replicate what you want to see.
Right.
Well,
there's nothing more exciting to me than when one of my printers, or people I work with, and it could be a printer, it could be a folding house, anybody who calls me up, and they're not selling me, but what they're saying is, I'm calling because we have the opportunity of doing this new technique, whatever it is, and I want to show it to you. That's all. I just want to show it to you. You can see it, and then you're the creative. You figure out how to integrate it into a job that you currently have.
So what you just said about doing, taking, and showing is in the world of print, on the print owner side, that's a big cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
On my side, what I always used to like to do, what I used to like to do on my side is constantly produce print samples.
Absolutely.
Give them to the sales team to go drop off at customers. So you're not there for any other reason than to say, hey, how are you? I just wanted to, bring you this, show it to you, and then leave.
Right.
Because you couldn't always go to the customer and say, you have something to quote? You have something to quote?
Oh, yeah, no.
If you're good and you have the relationship and you're finding a reason to drop off, they're going to remember you.
Absolutely. And that's the interesting thing of it is I cannot tell you how many customers, and again, I've been very fortunate. I've had very, very good customers with my agencies and at Sappy, of course, where the recipients would call me on a consulting basis and say, what's new out there? Or what should we know about? Or what can we talk about? And then the interesting part for me is I said, well, have you seen this sample? Have you seen this sample? Sometimes we would do a sample exclusively for the financial market. And I'm talking to somebody who is in manufacturing or is in entertainment. But they know that it cross-seminates. And they're thinking, what are they doing in the finance industry? What are they doing in the entertainment? I mean, one of the best, and I'm sure you know this, God, get a casino as a client, and all they want is they're hungry for new, cool, exciting, techniques that they can integrate. I mean, we introduced, augmented reality. We introduced every kind of stamping, every kind of coding, every kind of new ink technique. Right. And the minute that we introduced it, the casinos were on top of it right away because they needed that. Well,
you find the customers that have the money as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
And again, that's that to your point. Exactly. If you've got a sales force that's going out and showing pieces just to show them, oh, by the way, have you seen this new paper, this new holographic paper, or have you seen what this does? And you leave it with them, and then you don't know when it's going to click, but all of a sudden when it clicks, they're on you right away. Hey, I got a job. That paper that you showed me that does this and that? Can you get it?
I could tell you today in the digital embellishment market, one of the single-handedly biggest problems for printers with the equipment that aren't connecting with their customers is because they are not doing enough of their own self-promo.
Absolutely.
To let the customers, the customers know what they're doing. And I've always saying it like this. Any print owner should make a list of 500 or 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Do a mailing every month, invest in your creative, invest in the mailing, manage the list and everything. But you'll reach 1,000 people every month. Your salespeople can't do that, and you'll reach it for less cost.
Yeah.
And you'll have continuity, and automatically at the end of the year, you will pick up X amount of customers, even if your reps don't follow up.
Do you remember going back to offset days?
Mm-hmm. I am an offset guy.
I know, and likewise, but it's where we got our start. But my point is, do you remember in the offset days when there was sort of a rule of thumb in printers, if you had downtime, which nobody wants, but if you had it, you should be printing a self-promo. Right? Mm-hmm. And the fact of it is, that's still the case. If I think printers, and now I'm speaking as a creative director, I think printers have to become one of their own customers and book time and say, oh, by the way, this is a job for Pizzazz, or this is a Sappy job. We're doing it just for us to have a piece to take out because it's a part of marketing.
And go partner with one of your design clients.
Exactly.
So better the relationship, give them back something.
And if you're a printer, co-op with a paper house.
By the way, even if you're a printer, chances are the amount of paper you're using isn't that much. Buy the paper, give the paper company credit for nothing.
Absolutely.
Like
you should have production notes.
We don't all have to be just takers.
No,
right?
But going back to that educate and inspire, to me, there's nothing more valuable than when I get a piece and there's production notes on it and I learn from it and I look, because let me put it this way. I remember doing really, really, really early UV ink work on uncoated paper.
That's when UV gave you cancer, right?
Oh, God.
They used to say back then.
Wait, doing press checks with UV inks, it was a crapshoot. You didn't know if you were going to come out tripping, if you were going to have to go out for air.
You didn't know if the paper was going to turn on fire.
But my point is, I don't know if you remember, there was sort of a suit, a legal suit, because there was a company printing these gorgeous, gorgeous promotional pieces using UV inks on beautiful, beautiful uncoated paper, and then sending them out as a promo. The designer saw it, went to their printer and said, I want to do this. And the printer was like, I don't think we can do this. I don't think this is a normal technique. This is UV. And all of a sudden it started to snowball. And ultimately what happened was that you had to have, in those days, a little line, a little waiver that said this was printed with UV inks, because that's the only way that you were going to get that dot structure. Right. And also it was the only way that you were going to be able to print that kind of fidelity on an uncoated sheet.
And fast forward now with the HUV and the LCD, and it's like no heating systems. It's all no powders, nothing.
Nothing.
Beautiful thing. And actually, when I got my KBA, the print that excited me the most was printing UV on offset paper with the highest line screen. Absolutely,
and I remember that.
One of the first jobs we did at the time was we did the paper sample books for the Roland Enviro, whatever the
yes, indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was almost as if they had no choice to come to us because they were located in Quebec. I'm in Quebec. I have a UV press.
Yeah. I had the privilege of because I grew up in Chicago and there were so many extraordinary printers. I did my apprenticeship essentially at Black Box Colotype, which was, a very different printing process. But because of that experience, I actually got to work with some of the folks, the early 300 line, 400 line, 500 line screens,
Those were good days.
And they were, and they were exciting days, because I think everybody involved knew that what they were doing was pushing the technological envelope. They weren't looking necessarily at the financial feedback to it, but the ability to be able to be involved in those kinds of experiments, which, again, I've been very privileged to be really able to do so much of that early work.
That's the fun stuff.
Absolutely the fun stuff. It's absolutely the fun stuff. And in so many cases, I would consult and do the press checks and everything else for free because I wanted to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I wanted to also be a part of that collaborative effort. And so many, many years later, when you start to see the kinds of pieces that SAPI was producing, you're looking at really the very best in each of the fields. I mean, the best ink house, the best working with the best paper house, working with the best creative, working with the best printers. And we were lucky because we worked with a lot of printers,
You know what's cool today?
Please.
Most of the vendors and suppliers in the industry, their quality and their level of everything is up here now.
Yeah, you've
got now it's coming down to who do you like? How do they service you? Yeah. Is the machine the right machine for what you need to do?
Right. It's the nuance of doing business,
right.
Quite frankly, which, it's interesting. and I mean no slight by this, but we studied print. If you were a really good designer, if you were
typography, where did that go?
Really, yeah, I'm telling you, if you were a good production manager, you were studying. I mean, there was a time when there were just print production clubs.
Correct.
And they would have me come in to explain, how did you do this? How did you know to do this? What was the technique? And in many cases, I brought the printer in with me, and we would do it together, and we would talk about, I had a printer who once said to me, if you really, really want to understand enhancements, embellishments, special printing, read the ink magazines, because they're the ones who are actually coming up. They're the chemists. We're the engineers.
Right. Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, from a design perspective, you're like, oh, really? I had to learn paper. I had to learn ink. I had to learn type. I had to learn color. Now I've got to learn engineering and chemistry. Come on. Yeah. But those who did, you absolutely see it in their pieces. You absolutely see it in the pieces. And and if you're hanging out with the cool kids, and they're the ones who have said, yeah, have you seen this yet? And you're like, oh man.
I mean, I used to go to meetings with samples and stuff that we did on the UV press and smells and different textures and the reticulation and all of that. And I'd sit in a meeting and I'd just see people as I'm talking, they're like feeling the book, they're smelling the scent, or they're smiling, or it's like, honest to God, it's print porn. This stuff is amazing.
The haptic piece that we did had the highest density of soft touch when soft touch was first coming out. And I used to joke because we would hand out the books at the beginning on purpose, and then it would this one and people would be sitting there waiting for us to start, and then I would. Everybody knows the joke because they've heard me say it. It's like, don't think I don't see you petting your book. And sure enough, they would just be sitting there while you're talking, and I'm watching, and their hands aren't stopping from just moving on top of that surface because it was just so sensual. And I thought,
I would say to them, hey, if you rub it long enough, the genie's going to come out.
Amen. Exactly. Or, quite frankly, you're going steady. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
that's
but
funny.
I think that the context of the conversation, which to me is the most moving, is technology is moving really fast.
Technology is moving faster than we are.
Yeah, and because of that, when we admit it, and then we start collaborating with our printers and letting them know we're interested in the techniques, we're interested in the equipment. I don't need an equipment list. I need to know what it does and how do I incorporate it in what I do. Show me a sample. Explain to me how to integrate it into my design technique. Explain the print production process. How many days are there going to be? Are we adding cost? How that when you start explaining those kinds of nuances to me, and I can integrate it into in a way that I can go back to my marketing team or my executives because I got to sell it. The first sell is not to the customer; it's to the internal.
Right.
This is what I want to bring to the client, and
absolutely.
So
crazy.
Yeah.
It's fun. All right, listen, we're gonna put a stop. We're like, actually 34 minutes is good.
Great.
But we can go for hours. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick this up again in a little while.
Would be a delight.
Because I look at this, the flashbacks of what's happening, and I'm hoping the printers are listening. They're really getting a good feel of what they have to do, right? Because it's all in your samples, it's all in the quality, it's all in your techniques. And printers, the manufacturers make the equipment, they make the inks. You have to try on your own to figure out how to do it.
You bet.
If anybody wants, reach out to Danielle. He's always available to help.
I'm on
Reach out to
LinkedIn.
me. Yeah, reach out to both of us. Well, you
Yeah.
know what? We'll help you as a team. You'll get the printer and the
With
creative
pleasure. I would be honored.
and that'll be fun. I thank everybody for listening to this candid conversation with this most awesome dude. We're going to do it again. If anybody wants to hear anything or talk to me or be on with me, just let me know. Otherwise, Danielle, thank you for your time. Always a pleasure.
Are you kidding? I love talking to you. Are you kidding? Anytime whatsoever.
Me too, anytime. Everybody else, Warren Werbitt, for what they think. And I fucking love print like there's nothing else around.
Me too.
See ya.